Episode 1.
Episode 1 of Breathe Off the Mat.
That sounds a lot creepier than it was intended to.
Well, I thought it was better than Breathe brackets off the mat.
You can't say brackets off the mat on the camera. But yeah, episode 1. So this episode is going to be about us, how we kind of fell into the wellness industry, I guess, walked into the wellness industry. A little bit about what we're kind of both doing now, and I guess how we're navigating this year, really, and how that's affected what we do.
Yes, it's been an interesting year, hasn't it?
It's been a shit year.
Well, yeah, all right, yeah, fine. It's been a shit year. I mean, yeah, it's depends how you look at it. It's a chance to grow.
Mm-hmm.
It's a chance to learn new things. Definitely learn new things
Yeah, very, very steep learning curve.
and expand.
Yeah,
I think it's a terrible time, but I think it has its positives as well.
yeah, it's presented some opportunities, I think,
Yeah,
definitely.
like us doing a podcast.
Like us doing a podcast. Yeah.
So then, how did it all begin for you? I think it's fair to say that you, yeah, most definitely joined the wellness world before I did.
Yeah. um, I trained as a dancer. Went to Kingston University. I danced long before that as well. And actually, I think so. I'm a yoga teacher, and I was probably first introduced to yoga probably through. I had a couple of really fantastic tutors, John Chu, and the lovely Caroline as well. And Caroline is a yoga teacher. So we would do some yoga while I was at uni, and I absolutely hated it. Um, I found it very, very difficult to be able to relax. Hated Shavasana. Um, and yeah, just found it very, very much a struggle to be able to be on my mat and be on my mat. I had a million thoughts all running through my brain, which I think is probably very familiar for most people. But yeah, I left uni, and actually, I didn't really. I practiced yoga inconsistently because I knew it was meant to be good for me.
Yeah,
Um,
you weren't really that into it
no, I was not
at
that
all.
into it at all. Like I'd do a class on YouTube or something like that for an hour, but then I wouldn't practice for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was very inconsistent. And I did it more as a way of kind of staying physically in shape, kind of keeping strong, mobile. Um, and then actually, it was our very, very good friend, Antonia, who was doing, I think she was doing an Instagram challenge. You know, when they take all
Yes,
the
yeah, it
pictures
was.
on
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
She was doing an Instagram challenge, and we lived together. And she was like, "Oh, you should join in for some of the pictures." So we posted the pictures, and obviously, this is totally not what an Instagram challenge is meant to be, because you're meant to do the practice and then take a picture to signify that you've done the practice. And Antonia would do the practice, and then I'd just get on the mat and do the shape with her and like be not involved in the slightest. But it made for some very cute pictures, which we still have. Um, and actually, it was her doing that that made me practice a little bit more, and I got a bit more involved. And it was, I think, a 30-day Instagram challenge that I really started practicing. It was the first time I bought a yoga mat, definitely.
Was it a Sarah Beth challenge?
Yeah, I think it was a Sarah
Yeah,
Beth.
yeah.
We love Sarah Beth. Yeah, it was a Sarah Beth challenge. Um, and yeah, that's what started it, really.
I think actually Sarah Beth is probably responsible for the start of both of our yoga
Yeah,
journeys,
yeah.
and Antonia for that.
And Antonia. And a few other people we know, actually, as well.
Yeah, yeah, weird, isn't it?
And it was just one of those, I think, coincidences in life, in that at the same time, our other very good friend Emma was practicing with a yoga teacher in Chiswick.
Yes.
And she just started practicing, and we went along to a couple of those and then got hooked, and we were going kind of every week.
Oh, I was going 3 times a week.
Yeah, you were going a lot. I could only get to it because of the times, like once a week. But yeah, so as cheesy as it sounds, I think yoga probably would have found me at some point. I think it's probably quite inevitable, but it kind of came to a head with a lot of different people around us all coming to practice
Yeah,
at the same time.
yeah, 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 definitely. because yoga obviously wasn't the first thing that you did, and after dance you were doing Zumba,
Yeah.
which is still very dancey,
Yeah.
fitnessy, but the yoga didn't really come until after Antonio had started doing it. I'd started doing it because you guys were all doing Zumba, and I felt that I wanted to do something. I wanted
Yeah.
to be part of the gang.
And actually, you had a much more consistent practice before I did, didn't you?
Yeah. Every day, every morning for 1 to 2 hours without fail. Can't say that I do that now, unfortunately, but
No.
yeah, it was a good time, and and hopefully doing this podcast and doing all the things that we're doing now is going to get me back to where I was, because that was a much, much better time.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't 2020, so it was.
No, it was not 2020.
No. But yeah, so I'm guessing, did you fall in love with it straight away, or was it kind of a discipline thing? Was it a kind of a commitment to get on your mat?
Yeah, I think for me, I like discipline, and it was very much a discipline thing.
Yeah.
At the side, I was doing Ashtanga, which is, very set, and this is what you do, and you do it for this long,
Yeah.
and I like that, and it was quite, I don't want to say it was military-esque, but, I've sort of have
Yeah, no, definitely.
a very mild military background, so, yeah, I sort of drew that from that,
Yeah.
and, and I did Sarah Beth as well, and she was fantastic for beginners.
Yeah, definitely. She's great.
And and it just grew from there. And I like to be good at things, and yoga, surprisingly, yoga came very naturally to me. I'm quite naturally flexible, although
Yeah.
I might not look it. I am
Yeah.
quite bendy, and I was like, oh, actually, I can do this.
Yeah.
Whereas football, I was pretty terrible at. Rugby, again, I wasn't very good at. Hockey, I was quite good at, and I did do hockey for a
A long
number of
time, yeah.
years. Yeah, for a good 4 or 5 years, and I was heavily into that. But then, yeah, life just happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's always the
It
tricky
does.
thing, is that you always need to come back to your mat, and it really does help.
But I think we're both very, very different in the practices that we have. And I will be the first person to admit that I do not have a daily practice. I know you're not meant to admit that as a yoga teacher, but I definitely don't have a daily practice. I don't, well, I move in some facility every day, but it could be 5 minutes. It could be a transition, it could just be moving around my kitchen, but I don't get on my mat for like a solid hour
Yeah,
every day.
for you, it's not important to have a set
No,
1 hour practice that I do every single morning. You can do
no.
it throughout your day, as you go through your day. When
And I think we're both very different on the mat as well. I think you enjoy that kind of structure. You enjoy structure, don't you, to
Yeah,
a
yeah.
practice, and not necessarily it being the same every day, but there being maybe a progression within a similar framework of practice.
Yeah, I can't just jump on a mat and just go.
Yeah.
I need to have already thought what I'm going to do for that practice,
Yeah.
and how I'm going to do it, and how long it's going to be.
And I'm the exact opposite.
Yeah,
I don't like to get on a mat and know what I'm doing. I like to get on a mat and play,
but that's okay.
and move around. But I think that's why we're probably so compatible. And I think that's, yeah, I think that's a good difference that we have.
Yeah, yeah. Same but different.
Same but different. I was going to do a really inappropriate quote then, but I won't. I won't do that. So, is it for you the physical side of the practice that you enjoy the most now? Is it the
I think at the minute it probably is the physical side.
yeah?
I really need to get back to sort of the mental side of things, and being in the practice.
Yeah.
I think it's just 2020. I know we keep coming back to it, but
We're going to need to put a trigger warning at the front of this
yeah,
podcast. 2020.
yeah. I think for me, I'm extremely busy. I'm always on the go. I've got fingers in about 50,000 different pies,
Yeah.
and there's always something that I'm thinking about. And back when I first started, it was that escape that I
Yeah.
really enjoyed, and it's really hard to get back into, but
Yeah.
it's something that I'm focused on at the minute.
Yeah. But you have the discipline, so
Yeah, I mean, I can do yoga.
yeah.
I can practice, but then anyone can do yoga.
Yes,
It-
they can.
In my mind,
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
it's a very personal practice. Just because you don't look like somebody else or do what somebody else does.
No, I think yeah, That's important. I think we all get to celebrate who we are on the mat. And I think that's the important part of the practice.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if I'm in a class with 50 people or 100 people, it doesn't matter. It's just me in there.
Yeah.
You know,
Do
even
you prefer being in a smaller class or a bigger class?
it
Does it make a difference
it
to
makes
you?
no difference to me
So it's
whatsoever.
funny, as a teacher, it makes a huge difference. And I think different teachers feel different things. But I love to be in like a packed out studio
When you're teaching.
when I'm teaching. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess it gives you sort of a buzz and
Yeah.
a lift. It's like, wow, all these people have come to
And
practice with me.
Yeah, I know. But I don't even think it's that. I think it's just a collective energy that you get from the room. Like, I know this is probably a very, very unpopular opinion in with other teachers, but I don't like particularly, unless I'm very, very invested and unless there's a specific goal, I don't like teaching private classes.
No, you don't.
No, like, and when I say I don't like them, it doesn't mean I don't enjoy them. But I much prefer teaching a workshop or teaching a group of people. And I think that's maybe also because of where my background in teaching comes from, because I qualified as a teacher and then not that long afterwards was teaching at Yoga Fit,
Yeah.
which is run by our wonderful, wonderful friends, Ken, Antonia, and Lindsay. And yeah, Yoga Fit Retreats was my kind of real first foray into teaching big groups. And like when I say big groups, like 100 people.
Big groups.
Yeah. And I think maybe that comes from having a bit of a performer background as well.
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely kind of a performance extrovert.
Absolutely.
I don't think I'm necessarily always the loudest person in a group of people in a room.
No.
But when I'm teaching, I'm very much an extrovert.
But I also think when you teach, you teach.
Yeah.
You know, I feel that some teachers that you go and you're practicing with them and they're inviting you to practice with them.
Yeah.
Whereas when I do one of your classes, I feel that I come out and I'm like, wow, I've really learned something.
Yeah, I think it's so specific to each individual teacher, and depending on, each individual teacher has their method. That makes it sound really clinical, but their focus maybe
Yeah.
in a class. And I think I know a lot of fantastic teachers whose focus is very much on the feeling that you have when you leave practice, is very much kind of connection to self while you're on the mat.
Yeah.
It makes me sound extremely shallow, but that's totally, totally not my teaching. But it is in a roundabout way. For me, I personally, you get a lot of people that talk about the practice and they separate the meditation and the spiritual side of the practice to the physical side of the practice. And I'm very much a teacher that doesn't believe they need to be split. I think you can have a spiritual experience in moving your body. And I think moving your body is extremely powerful. I don't think you need to sit on your mat and meditate for 20 minutes to have that moment of, should we say, an epiphany or a moment where you feel really, really connected.
Yeah.
I think you can get that moving. And maybe that is dance background and where I come from. But yeah, my method of teaching is very much personal alignment based. It's very physical, and is very much kind of anatomical in my cueing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And I don't think there's one type of yoga. There's not one yoga teacher.
No, God no.
You know,
there's too many of us for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally practice with many different teachers. You know, I do your classes, but I do some other classes as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to experience different teachers and different styles as well, because I think you can get a little bit from everybody.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, definitely.
Obviously, there's some classes that I just love more than others, but I still go to these other classes because there's still something. There's always something that you can get from a class. Always, doesn't matter what they're teaching or how they're teaching it. I think it's important to experience that as well.
Yeah, and I think it's my biggest recommendation. I get lots of people that ask me about, do you think I should do a teacher training, and what teacher training should I do, and what should I go on to? And I think my biggest recommendation to people is always to try a million different classes.
Absolutely.
Because first of all, not necessarily the thing that you practice is the thing that you teach. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, it's much easier if it is. But I quite like that for me, it isn't necessarily. sometimes I dance around my mat and I move around my mat. I don't necessarily teach that.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, trying a mixture of styles, a mixture of teachers is definitely the thing that's going to give you kind of an education into what you want to teach
Yeah. Yeah.
and what you want to practice.
Absolutely. So, shall we discuss 2020?
Yeah. So tell me about your 2020.
My 2020, well, my day job is that I work for a dance school,
You
or
do?
a dance university, I should say. So there's a lot of physical movement there. And when 2020 happened, everything shut down and
Hmm.
we all had to go online. And fortunately, online is is where I thrive.
Yeah.
Anything with a plug or a cable on it, that's my bag,
Yeah.
Cameras, microphones, lights, all of that, that's me.
Yeah. So just to let everyone know, Jono comes from a very, very technical background. So what did you do at uni? Event.
I did. So my uni was one of two that did this extraordinary course, which was a degree in live. Oh my goodness, I've completely
Do you
forgotten.
even remember?
Sound, light, and live event technologies, I
There you
think
go.
it was called,
Yeah.
which was basically about 4 degrees rolled into one. We studied advanced mathematics, electronics, lighting, sound. It was like literally everything you could possibly think of. It's like they literally just went and just grabbed everything. So yeah, it was intense, but I learned a lot.
And then you ended up working in clubs.
And then then I joined the rave scene,
Yeah.
shall we say, for a number of years, working for some very very large clubs with some very large DJs and music artists, and working all hours under the sun.
Hmm.
And then from that, I was like, yeah, okay, this needs to stop. Well, actually, you turned around to me and said, this
Yeah.
needs to stop.
Yeah. I think I'd been very patient.
Yeah, it took you about 6 years,
Yeah,
I think.
7 years. But yeah, by this point we lived together and didn't see each other
No,
ever.
no, very rarely. Or if we did, I was asleep.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of you'd come in at like Saturday morning at 6 a.m. and
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
be
yeah.
getting ready to go to work and
And I'm trying to think if I discovered yoga while doing that, or
I think you did. I think you did.
yeah, possibly. Because as well as when I worked at Ministry of Sound, as well as being a music venue, it was a hire venue, and we did
Yeah,
a lot of fitness events there, and that's actually where I first met Ken and Lindsay.
yeah.
Believe it or not, um,
Everything's interconnected.
everything's interconnected. I'm not sure if Ken will remember, but yeah, he was in my sound booth running around with a camera.
Yeah,
So that was that. I decided I would take a step back. Still wanted to do technical stuff.
yeah,
I had recently discovered dance, thanks to you again.
yeah,
So I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, a dance school. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
yeah.
Still very, very intense,
Different demands.
but yeah, very different demands. Very different demands. So yeah, and then from there, obviously, I was doing the yoga. I dabbled in the fitness world when it was at ministry, and I'd met some people there. And then
Mhm.
you started doing Yoga Fit,
Mhm.
and then I came to Yoga Fit
Yeah, you jumped on 3 years in.
2 years in.
Yeah,
2 years in, so I've missed the first three
yeah,
retreats. Then I came on, started doing some technical things, and I've been going ever since.
yeah.
And that's where I met a lot of our friends now, fitness friends.
Mm.
And when we all went into lockdown, it was like,
Right.
right, okay,
I have a specific skill set here.
yeah. So that allowed me to thrive, and I could reach out to my fitness friends, and I could help them get set up, get
Mm.
online, continue teaching, and get me some free classes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think any of our friends that are listening to this will very much know that I was very much in front of the camera, but Jono set everything up. So Jono, get me started, because I think it was so we had to self-isolate for 2 weeks before we actually went into lockdown because we thought we'd possibly come into contact. Turns out we don't think we actually did,
No.
and we don't think we did have COVID. But yeah, so we had to isolate, and we had a feeling in that last week that something would be happening and that we would probably be going into lockdown.
Yeah.
And you ordered all of the kit. Um, and pretty much, well, it was the first week that we were in lockdown that I taught my first online class.
Yeah, it was.
I think a lot of teachers took a little time to take stock and to figure out their next move. And that didn't really happen with me. It was kind of, right, we've got the kit, we've got the know-how, let's take it online now. Let's avoid losing the students that you have.
Yeah, I think for you it was twofold. It was this is my business, this is my livelihood,
Yeah.
this is how I put a roof over my head.
Yeah.
And the other part of you was, oh wow, these people, they, we're all going to need some sort of connectivity during this time. So we just need to do it.
We need to do it quick, yeah. And I get a lot of messages from my students, which is lovely, very, very sweet, saying, oh, you've done this and you've done this and it's amazing what you've provided. And it works the other way as well, though, because if I hadn't have been able to teach, I would have been climbing the walls.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I would have, yeah, I don't know where I'd be. I'd be absolutely mental.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is the thing that when I'm teaching and when I'm in the moment, I'm at probably what I would say kind of is my absolute peak.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't have been able to do that, then I would have struggled a lot. So yeah, we went online really quickly, which was amazing. I kind of went in straight away to teaching 10 or 11 classes a week.
Oh yeah.
All from our living room,
All from our living room.
which required me to pull the coffee table into the kitchen and set up the living room because we live in London, so
Yeah, we live in your typical London flat.
London issues, no space. So yeah, lots of manoeuvring required, and I think every yoga teacher that's had to do this definitely feels like they are now a teacher, a technician, a sound engineer, and someone that works on their website, an online marketer.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be. It's what I call the blockbuster effect. If people remember Blockbuster many moons ago,
Yeah.
DVD and video rental place didn't move with the times. Netflix came along, did exactly the same thing they did, but then started offering streaming and downloads. And Blockbuster didn't want to do that, and they fell by the wayside.
Which is such a shame. I love Blockbuster.
Oh, we used to go to
Going in and
Blockbuster a
picking
lot.
picking your DVDs and
In Hounslow,
your
was it? Yeah, no,
sweets.
Witten Blockbuster
Witten Blockbuster. Or there was one where we used to live somewhere else in London, just around the corner
in
in Kingston.
Yeah.
Oh, good old days.
Blockbuster days. Now it's all Netflix days.
Netflix. Now it's all Netflix.
But it's that, and that always sits in the back of my mind. And when we went into lockdown and studios were closing and all this was going on, I was sort of like, right, we need to push forwards. We need to adapt. We need to diversify, and we just need to keep offering what was being offered before and offer it to a very specific level.
Yeah.
So people feel that they're getting a similar experience or maybe even a better experience than they were before.
Yeah.
So lockdown was actually quite busy for me, and then when we came out of lockdown, things had changed again. Studios weren't allowing as many people in, social distancing, all that kind of thing. And something that I'd set up at the dance school was a mixed mode delivery, where I had students in the studio and then I had students all over the world, because we're an international school and we needed to deliver the same thing to everybody.
Yeah.
So I'd set that up at the school. I had people in the studio, I had people at home, and studios started contacting me saying, "Oh, you've done this. This is quite interesting." So done a couple of studios now, got a third one on the way, and I think for studios, they've realised, oh, I can really increase my reach with this.
Oh yeah, it just massively changes who you can get to. It can be world over. It can be universal, which is amazing, because I know for you at the school, your students have the opportunity to take classes with people that they never would have been able to take class with before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think last week we had a class from Berlin, and all these amazing choreographers that are normally far too busy to come in and give us their time
Yeah.
because they're so busy out in the world. We can now sort of slot into their schedule a lot easier, and
Yeah.
it's made a massive difference. So there's a lot of negativity that goes around. It's like, oh, teaching on Zoom or teaching online, it's not the same, and it's like, well, yes and no. No, it's not the same. No, they're not in front of you, but you are still giving somebody the
Yeah.
opportunity to practice and to be with other people. Although it's not in person, you're still with them, and also it gives you the opportunity to go and experience new things with new people.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've done three. I've done 3 workshops online with teachers that the course previously probably would have sold out quicker than I could get onto the
Yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah.
And now they can really expand that and have, well, I mean, the sky's the limit, really. Hundreds of people,
That's it.
all online. So yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of challenges with it, but I think there's definitely some positive takeaways from it.
Yeah, I think as with everything, there's negatives. It can make people become very isolated. They don't go outside. They just experience everything online. But I'm really am a believer. Maybe it's just because I come from the techie background that technology is there to enhance your life, not hinder it, or to. And
To live through it completely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't think you can live through it. I think there are people that are, and people that will. But as with everything, people are going to misuse it.
Yeah,
It's not the item's fault or the technology's fault. It's the person that's using it.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm a firm believer that technology is here to help us and make life better for us.
yeah. Which I think kind of leads seamlessly into what we're beginning to work on now as well.
What might that be?
Wow. I know it feels really secretive. But yeah, so we are in the process of developing an online platform.
We are.
So the platform is going to be run by you and I and our very, very good friends, Ken and Antonia.
Who you'll probably see on this
Who you
podcast.
will definitely,
I hope.
definitely see on this podcast. Yeah, so this podcast is called Breathe Off the Mat, and the online platform is going to be Breathe Online. And I think maybe at some point we would have got round to it, but I think the challenges of this year and the opportunity that it's afforded just maybe pushed us into believing that it was possible,
Yeah.
that we could do it. Um, and Antonio and Ken obviously are the people behind Yoga Fit Retreats. They run successful retreats already.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Retreats.
those guys are incredible. And if you have been to a Yoga Fit retreat, then you know kind of you're part of a huge family. Like the returning customer is, the rate is absolutely off the charts. It's like 50-60% returning customer.
Yeah. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's
Yeah.
every 6 months. It's like, oh, we're going to see our family again.
Yeah.
And it is really a big.
Which is
bonding
really, really
experience.
special. And I think the fact that we haven't been able to have three of those retreats this year, because normally Yoga Fit has a retreat in April in Ibiza. This year was going to be the first year of Greece in May.
Yeah.
And then we should have flown out to Ibiza yesterday.
Let's not
Get
think
the little
about
violins out. Yeah, so we should have flown out to Ibiza yesterday for the second Ibiza retreat this year. And I think it was not being able to do those retreats as well that made us think, we don't know how long the situation that we're in all in is going to last. Hopefully, not that much longer, but we don't know. I don't want to use the word unprecedented. I feel like I've just used it, but I feel like it's in every freaking sentence that comes out the government's mouth at the moment and drives me insane. But yeah, I think just not being able to do that kind of spurred us on to think, if this is something that either hangs around for a while, I mean, dread to think, touch wood, that it doesn't happen again. But there's a million different reasons as to why we could not physically hold a retreat.
Yeah.
So creating an online platform where we have a mix of, the best teachers that we know, delivering pre-recorded content so that there's content online ready for you to dip into,
Yeah.
but also bringing you live classes, so that there's a sense of community developed through the whole time that you're on the platform, in and around the platform, I think is really important. And I don't think, yeah, like I said, I don't think we would have got around to it if it
No, I
wasn't for
think
this year.
this definitely spurred us on, and it sort of it helps to fill the gap between retreats.
Yeah,
If anyone listening has been to a retreat, I think when you get back, it's very similar to if you've ever been skiing or
yeah.
snowboarding. You come back and you're like, oh,
You're like really, really buzzed,
but
but
also,
also really sad.
yeah, and hopefully it's sort of like it'll allow people to come together more.
Yeah,
And there's people, and again, just reach people all over the world and sort of share our experience and sort of what we like about the
mm,
fitness world. Because we've got teachers on the platform that do so many different things, and I think quite a lot of these teachers, they're not big, well-known they're not global teachers. A lot of them,
yes, yeah. Some are, some aren't.
and I think it's giving the world or giving a wider
Mm.
community the opportunity to see what we see in these teachers.
Yeah, because I think there's a big, big assumption, especially because we live in London, and there's 1,000,001 studios in
Yeah,
London. But there's kind of an assumption that the best teachers are at the big studios. So Central London studios.
yeah,
And I'm not saying they're not, they have fantastic teachers, but Central London studios, there are obviously a few big names, I don't need to name them. Um, but there's a kind of a sense that they have all the best teachers and that there's not really a need to look elsewhere.
yeah,
And I just think it is not the case. I think, yes, they have incredible teachers, but there are incredible teachers to be found wherever you are.
absolutely.
And also, if you don't live in London, you're not going to commute in to those
No,
studios. Or if you live in the arse end of, North London, you're not going to travel all the way into Central London, um, especially at the moment, to teach those classes in those big,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
well-known studios. I think there are lots of smaller studios around the UK, around the whole of the world, that have fantastic teachers,
absolutely.
and they just don't either have the ability or the inclination to go and teach for a bigger
Yeah,
studio.
yeah, yeah. And I think the platform as well is very teacher focused and not
Mm,
just sort of client focused, or it's not just about what the people on the receiving end
no,
want. We're very much thinking, what can we do for the teachers?
yeah. How do we support our teachers?
How can we promote new teachers? How can we bring new teachers on board and share, what they do?
Yeah, because I don't think people realize, but when you are, I think it's probably when you're any type of fitness professional, but it's really freaking lonely when you're a yoga teacher.
Do you think?
Yeah, it's so lonely because you plan your classes on your own.
Yeah.
You travel to your class on your own. You teach your class, and you might have a room full of students, but you're the teacher and you teach on your own. It's very rare that you would team teach unless you were at a
Mm,
retreat or a workshop or something like that. Um, and then you travel back on your own.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
And unless you're doing trainings with a group of people and things like that, it's a very, very solitary life.
Mm,
And despite the fact that we're yoga teachers, a lot of us are freaking terrible at reaching out to other yoga teachers and asking, how are you doing?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How are you doing in the industry? Do you feel swallowed up by it? Do you feel connected? Do you not feel connected? One of the really lovely studios that I teach for, Ember Yoga, they run a satsang for their teachers so that we can come together, and obviously that hasn't happened in a while. But we get together casually just whenever I can. But we get together, and we trade ideas, and teachers lead the sessions, and we talk and we look at anatomy and we work out language in class and how we're delivering our classes, and you learn to teach, and then you're out in the world and you don't a lot of the time have a mentor.
Mm.
So a lot of the time you feel a little bit like I'm winging this. Like,
But obviously you're not.
no, I mean, obviously. Everyone knows I'm one of the most prepared people ever.
Super prepared.
Yeah, I'm not a teacher that goes into her class and goes, fill the room, what are we going to do? And I don't knock that. I think it's a skill that other teachers have. But when I go into a room, I'm teaching for a specific reason.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm teaching, I like people to be educated about their body, because when you're educated, you can make informed decisions, and then they are your decisions. And I think part of being a teacher is handing that power back to your student. I think that's unbelievably important. But yeah,
Sorry,
massively got sidetracked there.
all I'm thinking about now is, oh my goodness, what is she like when she hasn't planned a class or hasn't had time or
Oh,
something's
terrible,
happened?
terrible.
Oh my goodness, honestly, it's like you just need to run and hide. Just chuck her in the studio and shut the door.
Can we just clarify though? It's not that my class is shit,
No,
um,
not at all.
but it's the build up to the class. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
If
like,
I don't know exactly what I'm doing, I'm very nervous. I'm very scatterbrained. I'm very.
yeah, you can still deliver the class.
I can still deliver the class, but it doesn't. I don't feel that there's. I don't know. That just for me, it doesn't convey who I am as a teacher.
Yeah,
To turn up to a class and not plan a class. Some teachers are fantastic at it, and I've been to plenty of teachers' classes who I've come out of and gone, that was amazing. I love that. And they were like, oh yeah, I just thought of it 2 minutes before. I was like, what? I hate you. But yeah, some teachers do have that. But this is the other thing, is that you don't realise that unless you talk to teachers.
That's it.
And teachers don't talk to each other.
And that's what the platform will
and
do.
that's what the platform will do.
We hope.
We hope.
We can only hope.
No, we can only hope and see. Hopefully, if you listen to the podcast, you'll also be part of the platform. That
Yeah.
would be really nice. But yeah, I think that ties everything up really nicely.
I think it does.
I think that's a nice place to
So episode 1.
end our
Done.
episode 1. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
If you've made it all the way through to the end.
Yeah.
well
And
done,
thank you for
well done.
chatting. Thank you, Jono.
I enjoyed this.
Yeah, it was really fun.
I don't think we often chat.
No, we don't. We never see each other. Or if we do, we're in our allotment.
Yeah, that's when we see each
Spoiler,
other.
we'll talk about that
We'll
in
talk
the next
about that
episode.
in the next episode. But, yeah.
The life we lead, guys.
Thanks for joining us,
Yeah.
and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Yeah. See you soon.